And we have proposed a spending level at $376,000, about 12% above what we had budgeted for 2025. This level of spending would allow us to expand investments in music, programs, and special events, as well as to do a bit more than the bare minimum in terms of landscape hardening and modest building upgrades. Not changing everything, but doing a little bit more than we absolutely have to. It would also begin to fund a maintenance reserve again, so it would set a little side of money for this year for expenses we know will come every 5, 10, or 20 years in a place like this. And have the potential to expand outreach giving as well. So to those of us who've been involved in this first round of financial planning, this amount feels consistent with both prudent financial management and some investments for growth. And so that's our goal, that's our aspiration, that's the amount that we've set as the target for spending this year. Now, if that's our target for spending, we need to think, so what do we need for revenue? To be able to spend that much and have a balanced budget, we need to raise $326,000 in pledges. So this is on the back side of your little handout if you have that handout. We do receive some funds every year in facility use fees, some funds in the plate, gifts come in, although of course those are pretty hard to predict. As well as we have some interest earnings because we do still have some reserves that are invested in FDIC CDs. But the core 85% of what we spend every year is from pledges from parishioners who, as John told you earlier, make that commitment in advance so that the vestry can plan on spending for next year. So, I've been a parishioner for St. Anselm's for 23 years, not as long as some of you, longer than some of you. And my impression is that this parish has gone through a couple of eras. You know, we were established as a mission, which by definition means that we were dependent on the diocese for a lot of our support. Took, I think, 10 or 12 years to establish ourselves as freestanding and able to support ourselves as an independent diocese. And then I think we went through a fairly long period where we were reasonably comfortable in terms of the pledges and revenues that we received covering our costs. The building was newer, didn't have quite as many demands in a number of domains. But then really we came to a point in around 2021, partly related to the pandemic, partly related to other trends, where we stopped being able to balance the books, basically. And you know, there were a lot of factors to this. The pandemic caused fewer people to come to church. We had aging and departing members. We lost senior, longstanding members who had been very faithful givers over the years. And then, of course, exacerbating that was the clergy transition period of 2022-24, where we really had some soul searching to do in terms of who we were, what we were doing. And again, it was not a robust time for financial planning. Last year, we turned a corner, and it was an important corner. We, for the first time in about 5 years, increased the number of households pledging and dramatically increased how much people gave in pledges. But it's still a fairly small number of people, households who pledge. So we're faced this year with an opportunity, and really it's an exciting opportunity. You know, when we developed this plan for spending, there are a lot of things that could be enriched and deepened here in terms of programs and activities, and I think there's a great enthusiasm here to do that, but it takes money, and so that's why we have this stewardship conversation. It would be great to see both more households pledging whatever they can, as well as see if we can reach that target. So I think that is my spiel. What I would love is to hear some questions, because I will do better when you ask me what you don't know than if I try to guess what you ought to know. Katie, I will repeat the question if you don't have a mic, but go ahead and try.
Yeah, I don't. Well, my question is really about the plate
Yeah.
and the importance of that in running our church. Um, I know the rector uses at least 1 week out of the month, he uses the plate uh, for his uses, right? You do not? Or you do?
We intend to start that. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, there's a tradition of a discretionary fund, which is really important for the rector to have an opportunity, you know, when someone in distress, whether from within the parish or outside the parish, comes to him perhaps in a confidential way and needs, you know, gas for their car or whatever it might be. That's the traditional use for rector's discretionary funds. Sometimes there are other outreach or so on activities. We have not formally instituted that one Sunday a month thing. We probably will, and we'll be sure and announce that well when we do it. More generally, you know, the plate offering is, I think it shows on here, we imagine that non-pledge giving in plate would be about $12,000. So whatever that is, 4% or something of total. That's based on, you know, historical trends. People, visitors and so on, put money in the plate. Some people put money in the plate, don't pledge. We appreciate every cent, believe me, but do understand two things about that. It's not forecastable and predictable. It's very hard for the vestry to say, you know, this year we're going to plan on twice as much as we got last year in the plate, because there's no reason, there's no way you can control or manage that. So that's one factor. And the other factor is for givers, you know, you may know in your head, I'm the most faithful giver that ever was. I put $20 in the plate every single Sunday, but we can't attribute that to you. We can't send you a tax statement at the end of the year that says you were the one who put that amount in the plate every Sunday. So although we appreciate any donations, there's a lot of merit to being transparent and letting us know that you have made a gift for your purposes as well as ours.
That's what I'm leading up to, is that amount, yes, of course we would appreciate it, but that amount is almost, well, I don't know how to word it. I don't want to demean it, certainly what people give, but it's so vital that we have the pledge. I mean, I just don't, it's an amount that I don't think we should almost think of. I mean, it's like it's an extra gift. It's a little extra
there is
piece.
there's an unpredictability to it that, well, again, you can think of it as a delightful windfall, but it's hard to, you know, really build your budget on it, make that the foundation of your budget. Yes, Pamela.
What my pledge wants to be, given my household budget or spending plan. Is there a preferred, like you mentioned, a weekly, you know, but can you give, and you mentioned weekly and the one time, but can you give every month? Is there?
Absolutely.
Is there a preferred method?
So no, the cadence, as you will, of your payments is entirely up to you, whatever is convenient. The method of your payment, you know, whether it's by check or, you know, some people have contributions made through their retirement funds or other financial vehicles. However you want to send it in is fine. Do, you know, make clear if it comes through bank transfers, sometimes it's hard to tell that it was you, you know, if it's a account in the name of somebody other, you know, somebody's trust or whatever. So just try to make that clear. Communicate with Margaret or Steve in the office if there's any question about that. In terms of the pacing, it is nice. We appreciate it if you put it on the pledge cards what your plans are. I like to give quarterly. I'm going to give it once a year, at the beginning of the year, toward the end of the year, whatever it might be, because we do have some cash flow issues. They are not, you know, they are not dramatically hard to manage, but it's nice to have some visibility into whether the pledge income is going to come pretty steadily or with some ups and downs. But that's really entirely up to you. Thank you for that question. So I said earlier, this is a Q&A, but it'll only work if there are Qs. So
The other, if I have you in my trust and will, which I don't at this moment, but that will happen, this does not account for that.
No, so a
Separate.
separate opportunity and need is to, yes, over the years, faithful parishioners have put St. Anselm's in their will, and we have received some one-time gifts, and that's partly why we have accumulated a reserve, which now is in the bank. Going forward, we have now established a endowment. Thank you, an endowment. And what the benefit of the endowment is that it's really a very long horizon planning where you can invest money for growth potentially, just as in those of us, with retirement funds, some of your retirement IRA is probably in stock market type vehicles. And so over the very long term, the endowment should grow more and should be a source of stable funding. But that's the very long term. And we're talking, what about this year? So, and what we would like is for the endowment to be an opportunity to invest in really big and additional things, so it might be a complete redo of the office and classroom building at some point in the future, or maybe it's a completely new music initiative that we might want to take on. So what I'm talking about here is much more the nuts and bolts, saying to your spouse or your financial partner, honey, what are we going to do this year with the income we have and the expenses we have? How are we going to make those even out? And so, yes, we have the opportunity because we have some reserves to run a deficit, but we don't want to do that forever. We want to be a church that is self-sustaining and able to plan for a long-term future, not for a slow decline, which is what drawing down on reserves indefinitely implies to me anyway. Yes.
Maybe they don't even know which Sunday they were going to put that 20 in or only a 1 or that type of thing, and maybe they feel that's not worthy of a pledge. And my thought is, whatever it is, it's worthy of telling us so that we do know. I don't know if that idea isn't out to people so that they feel everything is welcome.
It's, so that's Katie. Katie's the head of our stewardship committee, which we appreciate. I think that it's a very personal decision, right? Exactly what you give and how much you give and when you give it. To me, and now I'm not the treasurer, I'm just Marion, a parishioner. To me, there is a real discipline and an appropriate discipline as a member of a community to say, acting on faith, I believe I can and will give this amount of money next year and tell my community that that's what I'm doing. And if it's $20, thank you, that's great. Thank you for demonstrating your commitment to St. Anselm's. If it's much more than that, because we have been blessed with more, that's great too. But, I would urge people not to overthink, maybe something terrible will happen in 6 months and then I wouldn't be able to fulfill it. Every once in a while that does happen. And somebody calls the bookkeeper or the treasurer and says, I'm so sorry, in good faith, I made this commitment. My situation has changed dramatically. I'm not going to be able to fulfill it. Of course, we understand that. Of course, stuff happens. But the notion of stepping up in faith and confidence and saying, I'm going to do this is a commitment to yourself, to your fellow community members, and as a priest once reminded me about what a vow means, it's a promise to God. It's not just a you and me kind of thing. It's like serious, and so I hope we can take it seriously and believe that this place is worth our hopes and commitments and our aspirations. Oh, yay, Julie.
You mentioned a slight increase in the amount of the budget for next year, and I don't know if it's written here. Could you just say that, what that is again?
Yeah,
12%?
so 12% is the increase in the spending plan, which you could say is slight or not slight, depending on how you look at it. I didn't break it out entirely, but I think about this in three buckets, basically. There's sort of the non-optional spending increases. There are things like, utilities are going to go up a little bit, and staff salaries and benefits are going to go up a little bit, and the expenses of insurance maybe will go up a little, certainly won't do better than stay flat. Things like that you just have to be, janitorial services. I mean, things like that are just, there's no not having them. Then there are things that are investments to deepen our communal life together. So we would like to invest perhaps 50% more in the music program than we did this last year. We would like to have a little bit more flexibility to do either a couple more community events or spend a little bit more on them when we do them. And then finally, there are some just kind of prudent financial management investments that we should make. We should put some money in a maintenance reserve because we will need another new roof in 15 or 20 years, So if those are the three categories, they all add a little bit to that 12% more spending, and it's probably, I'm making this up, but it's probably about a third. And again, this is all just an initial plan. This is a draft. What's going to happen next is that you all, and hopefully many who are not in this room, are going to submit their pledges and let us have that first estimate of what pledge income will look like next year. At the same time, we will be fine-tuning our spending estimates. We made these estimates based on some good information in some cases, but incomplete information in other cases. Notably, some of the decisions about diocesan finance happen at convention next week, so we don't know for sure exactly what some of those are. So we will be lining up, what are we looking at in terms of income, what additional facts do we have about spending, and then the vestry will, at its November and December meetings, really confront these decisions. How much is coming in? How much do we have to spend? How much do we want to spend? How are we going to pencil that out? And if the stewardship campaign achieves its target, then those decisions will be a lot easier than if we don't. And if we don't, then those, again, you all are smart people. You know what the range of decisions are, spend less or run a deficit. Right? There are only so many if you don't hit that revenue target. So again, I would encourage you all both to think about your own pledge, but engage with vestry members or go to the vestry meeting and participate in that conversation. Like any budget conversation, it's not going to be black and white. Different people are going to have different views about what the highest priority is. That's a good thing. One reason I'm standing here talking to you about this is because I think this whole congregation needs to practice having those conversations and do them thoughtfully and, with openness to hearing different points of view. So that will likely happen. But again, the more successful the stewardship campaign, the more delightful those decisions will be, I think. All right. I feel that perhaps, oh, Chris, yay. Oh, thank you. Online question. The phones are open.
So I get older. The mechanics of there's a link for online contributions, but I don't know how to use that link.
Okay.
Some instruction.
So I think the question, there was a little trouble with the audio, but I think the question was, how do I make an online contribution? We have an online contribution set up via Zephy. I have done it myself, and I would be happy to chat with you or to connect you with our bookkeeper or somebody else who can help you navigate that. I'm not sure what the difficulty was, but I can't tell you, I can't give you sufficiently clear instructions that I wouldn't be taking a lot of other people's time, but I'm happy to follow up and make sure that that's easy. Certainly, thank you. Are there other questions online or in the room? I'm looking at our tech team. Are there other questions online, or shall I let all these kind people go? Oh. Okay. Okay. Julie,
I do have one more.
may I leave now?
Yeah. Before I became involved, like, with this stuff via the investment, I didn't realize the role of the diocese in our budget.
Yeah.
And I was shocked, actually, when I found out about this. We actually give money to the diocese. And if we could clarify that a little bit, just briefly,
Yeah.
sort of over.
Yeah, so this is, I think, this was a big surprise to me the first time I ever served on vestry as well. We pay an assessment, all Episcopal churches in good standing, all parishes in good standing pay an assessment to the diocese, and it is not small. It is, I can't remember exactly, and yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, yes, it is. It's closer to $35,000. So it's about 10% of our budget. And that's, real money for a parish like this. It goes, I think, I don't know. I think most of us are proud to be Episcopalians and proud to be part of a larger church. And I know that there are conversations at the diocesan level about how those assessments should be set, how the size and financial health of the parishes should be considered, whether there are, whether that's the right level. But in the short term, for as long as we want to be an Episcopal church in good standing, that's in that non-optional category. So that is what it is, but it's not a small thing. So I appreciate you raising it. No, that's great.
The money from the churches, the only way the diocese gets money, or?
I would imagine they have an endowment too, do they not?
They have an
Yeah.
endowment,
Yeah.
and there have been capital campaigns over the years to raise resources like that. There are different funds for various purposes, but largely, just like we depend on pledges to make our life work, the diocese depends on parishes
Paying
making their contribution.
assessments. Yeah.
And it's in some dioceses, it's rarer now, but growing up in Virginia, it was optional how much of your percentage. It's not optional. They tell us. They look at our numbers, they look at our budget, and they say, this is what we expect you to give. And there are people who are working to shift the percentage. I think it's 12%, and they may want to try to bring that down, but we can't guarantee that. That's already kind of locked in. It's based on like last year's intake.
Yeah. The other thing I'll just say as a footnote, because again, this is one of these things I learned pretty recently. Grace Cathedral is not the diocese. So there is a church and a life of Grace Cathedral. So the fact that Grace Cathedral runs fancy events and has, potentially rich donors does not support the day-to-day diocese. So just another thing that might be a point of confusion. All right. Last online questions, last anybody? Okay, thank you. I really appreciate everybody's patience and commitment. And if you do have questions, please let me know. And if I can't answer them, I'll figure out who can.
Yes, a big thank you to Marion, and immense thanks for all the effort and time. And helping us think thoughtfully about this. I think this is the first time in a few years that we've been able to really be proactive about looking at our budget and really aiming to meet a higher goal than maybe we set for ourselves. I'm super grateful for everyone. And by the way, first pledge card has come in. I haven't looked at it, but God bless the person who handed it to me. You don't have to wait till the 26th, especially if you're not going to be around on the 26th. So we'd love to be able to count your pledge. I think it's important to know, I think it might be in there, it may not be, but we're somewhere around 52, 53 pledges. We'd love to see that number go up. It went up last year. It would be great to see that happen again. And again, it matters the amount because we want you to be prayerful about it. We want you to think about your own finances and what you can afford. What matters is that you do it, because that really helps us build our budget and think thoughtfully and also know how vibrant and alive this place is. So your pledge could come from you, and it should, but it can also come from people you know that love us, who may not be here every week. We have pledgers who live in Montana and show up on Zoom. I'm going to sort of nudge my mom to pledge because she goes to a church that doesn't ask her to pledge. And I'm going to say, well, pledge to us. So think about that. It's really okay let's build a culture where we support organizations and communities like this one. I want to close in front of you. If you look at it, I want you to put it back when you're done, unless you really want to take it with you. There's a prayer of St. Anselm, and I thought we could say that as our closer. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. O Lord, my God, teach my heart where and how to seek you, where and how to find you. Lord, you are my Lord and my God, and I have never seen you. You have created and recreated me. All the good I have comes from you, and still I do not know you. I have not yet accomplished that for which I was made. Teach me to seek you, and as I seek you, show yourself to me, for I cannot seek you unless you show me how. Let me seek you by desiring you, and desire you by seeking you. Let me find you by loving you, and love you in finding you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you all. Thank you to snacks and water today. Big thanks.